Quack. 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 13 and I am your host, Adam Shamail.
And I am Aaron C. Schroeder.
That is right, and this is the Quack 12 podcast, the most official, unofficial Oregon Ducks podcast in the Big Ten, which is the conference that we absolutely rule with authoritarian power.
I mean, yes.
What you gonna do?
Interestingly, okay, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, that's all I gotta say. We beat Ohio State. We beat Penn State. We beat Michigan. Literally the top powers you got, unless you want to talk about little upstart Indiana. But we may get to them if they get the privilege of playing these Oregon Ducks.
Right. Now, via text, you hit me with a statement that I found kind of interesting because I felt like I had
What did you have? Besides the gall to waste time on this podcast.
I know, I'm so sorry. I was trying to look for your text, but I had an opposing opinion about it, which was that I saw the game against Penn State in which we became undisputed, irreparably the greatest team to ever play the sport. I found that being up by 2 scores for the majority of the game was a totally fine feeling. And sure, maybe we were going to give them some stuff because they were no slackers. But I will say this. It was like watching the color gray, watching Penn State play. Does that make sense at all?
No, not really, actually, now I think about it.
They were doing a good job. Right? It was like, wow, this is a pretty formidable opponent. This actually feels like a really good test. And I feel great that we are maintaining a 2-score game for a majority of this thing, although it gets a little nervous or whatever. Watching Penn State play was like watching banana pudding. Like they weren't. Does that make sense? It was just like, I'm not really impressed by them to be scared of them.
Well, this is my thought. First of all, you know how much shit all season I have been talking about the Penn State offense specifically. I've been saying that their offense is lackluster. Once they play a real defense, they were going to get completely shut down, and that Warren is the only player of note, maybe Drew Aller, but Drew Aller wasn't a big game QB. The reason why I was nervous, why it had me sweating a bit, is because, we did have a good lead for like most of the game, but it would be like, 2-3 score lead, and then it'd be like 2 score, 1 score, 2 score, 1 score, 2 score, 1 score. And that's great because after that first quarter, or even during the first quarter, they were still scoring. We could not stop them at all. Like at all. Our defense was completely gone.
They could have scored a touchdown every drive, but they did not. They also got intercepted twice.
They got intercepted twice. But if
they got sacked, which that was the only thing that did bummed me out, which I was like, dang, we should have 4 sacks.
I want 10 sacks every game.
I mean, when you get used to 10 sacks.
I'll tell you this. Oh, dude, it was just, I'm not lying. I mean, it ended a 1-score game. They had the ball in their hand, and at that point I was just like, oh, this is absolutely going to be a tie because we can't stop them. They were putting up,
but then we stopped them,
and we won the game.
That's right.
Amazing. Well, and so it's
a beautiful game.
It's both where it's like the thing I was sure of, and both of these are defensive teams. These are teams basically fully known for that is the stronger part of their ball. And the other side was criticized. But holy hell. The one thing that gave me confidence, obviously, is time and time again, maybe except for like the final drive, but luckily that interception saved us. Dylan Gabriel went every single time, just about, that it was like, we need a big play. We need to keep moving forward, or this could get really dicey. Every damn time. In
some spots.
Whoo! Every damn time.
Indeed, brother.
In the middle. Someone was always open in the middle of the field.
You got to be like this. You have to look like you are the Heisman Trophy to catch the ball, and you're good.
Speaking of which, Dylan Gabriel nominated for the Heisman Trophy. Does he have a chance of winning? No way in hell. But honor to be. I mean, that's 2 years in a row we've had a quarterback go. That's good PR. Right.
I'm just gonna say this. For a team that spent $3 million more than us in the NIL, they looked like a bunch of gray pudding. That's all I'm gonna say. And
you're gonna bring it
I don't know. I feel fine about the game. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was great to see football getting played. Like,
it was a good game
at a level that was just banana beans. I mean, Penn State, like you said, was doing good at keeping us on our heels.
Not doing good. They were doing great things for their offense. It was.
I will say this as well.
They got 523 yards.
Some of the best officiating I've ever seen. Loved it. Loved the refs in this one. Great guys.
What were they doing? They weren't calling shit. They
were calling face masks.
Yeah, that's true.
I do love that. But then the best part about this game really was that you could just hear in the one announcer's voice that he was willing to let the Ducks slide on just about everything, as were the refs, which I'm like, good work, sirs.
I'll tell you this, Penn State fans are furious at the supposed amount of holding that we got away with. That is,
they showed a few where they said he got away with one, and that's as far as I know. That must be true. He got away with one.
Yeah, I'm pretty curious. Looking afterwards, there's people I really respect, like a Jeff Schwartz, famous O lineman for the Ducks. He's a really good follow on Twitter. He usually breaks down film. He's like, I didn't see much. I mean, obviously he's not the lead. He's a little bit biased, but typically he'll call it as it is. I don't think it was like, I think it went either way, because it's like, as far as sacks were concerned, we barely got anything. Only 3 penalties called against us, but I don't think it was anything nuts. I mean, we had like a downfield lineman on that amazing Tez Johnson.
Yeah, we did also have a personal foul or something. We had a 15-yard
that's
accident boo-boo.
And that extended their drive, which was not good. But overall,
that's right. That's exactly what happened. That one did cheese me off. I was like, bros,
that was a tough one. But those those penalties that they got called on them early, those were game changing. Because we got up a big lead. We probably would have scored because they were stopping us. But we got up to the point 21-10 at one point.
Baby,
10. It felt like it was
while they're face masking Jordan James. Yeah, and he's breaking through.
Nuts. Who are some of your favorite players? I mean, some of them are obvious, but what moments, what players are really standing out for you?
Well, Jordan James is obviously the favorite by 1 million miles for the entirety of probably the rest of my life and his career.
Nice. 20 carries, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, against good defense. Yeah.
I mean, it's all the names we've been saying constantly. It's Betcher showed up where he needed to sometimes. He was getting...
What'd you think of Kenyon Sadiq's hurdle for the touchdown?
Yes. That was an epic one. He was really showing up early in the game. Dude, how about that time when they went whole hogs, fucking got it on the Turner, they got a full pig and they're about to have a luau down with Tez Johnson being the stepbrother. I mean, they gave us
my God.
They gave us a Christmas Story backstory, bro.
I actually didn't even catch them saying adopted stepbrother until I rewatched the game, and they really like sneak it in there. He's just like, then there's Johnson, of course, the brother, the adopted stepbrother of he's just like,
right, yeah, and then they go, and we got some more backstory actually about that relationship in Christmas 2003.
I know,
like,
I kind of
care.
This is what I will say. I'm shocked by this. I didn't know the specifics of how they revealed to Tez that he was a duck. So I did appreciate that story because I didn't know it. That like Bo Nix tricked him.
When Bo Nix you learn something new that humanizes people, you like it.
Yeah.
That's why they do it.
But what I don't need is them always peppering in the fact that he's an adopted brother. I appreciated the story of them being like, nah, I don't think we got room for you on the Ducks. And then him just being like, yo, bro, boom. That was fun. Tez Johnson, the MVP of the game. Truly, and I believe this is like possibly the first game that I guess since we're making the qualifier, a real parent of his, not his adopted parents. Ugh, everyone knows those are fake. His real parent got to see him, I heard.
Good.
Bloodline is everything, according to these people. So that was, it was pretty amazing. Also, we got to bring this up, Aaron.
Damn, that was a dark statement you just made.
Well, that's what the media tells me, so that's all I go with.
Bloodline is everything. You're not wrong. It's just a different podcast. I feel
if I adopted you, you would never actually be my son. Maybe you could tell people that
hurts.
You would be like, oh yeah, no, that's my daddy, and I would be like, adopted daddy, adopted.
You want $20? You go get a job.
Adopted zaddy.
While you're out finding a job, pick me up a 6-pack.
Aaron, it was essentially a home game for Penn State. I don't know if you noticed.
Sure.
It was nuts. And that made me feel even better because it was like, holy, like it's truly it on the look of it was like 9-1 ratio.
Yeah.
Penn State fans to Oregon fans.
For sure.
You want to know who the saddest motherfuckers in the world are? Yeah, we curse on this podcast.
The Penn State fans that were in the stands?
Even
because I saw some people looking like so bummed the whole game.
That lady.
That I was like, you know what? I actually empathize. Like I didn't realize I had empathy until I saw them. I was like, damn, this does suck for y'all.
Yeah,
because this was an easy trip. Y'all were gonna have a great time.
Yeah. So the saddest people in the world, in my opinion, are the Ohio State fans, and there's a good amount. I have it under good authority. Not only people on Twitter, but people who like
on
literally went to the game as Duck fans. All right, and I talked to them. That there was, and you just saw pictures of them. There were so many like Ohio State fans there in Ohio State gear being like, oh, well, we bought a ticket when we thought we were going before we lost to Michigan. So we figured, might as well go. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Get a life.
Well, honestly, I don't know. Because for them, their heart was already broken. They got to watch good fucking football. So they actually got, they got a bump. They got to have that week later,
Yeah, but like I wouldn't feel, it's one thing I've always thought, like if I show up to an Apple Cup, Wazoo, Washington, it seems fun to wear full Duck gear. I don't know, listeners, if anyone's done this, hit us up and let me know how it went. Wear full Duck gear, show up, go to the Wazoo section, be like, hey, I'm rooting for you guys. I don't root for Washington State, but I root against the Huskies. So I am here and I'm ready to fully support you guys. That you're the elves in the two towers that show up to fight the Orokai.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
You know what that means.
Well, let me ask you this.
But this is different. This is like we were supposed to be here. We hate both your teams.
Well, right, because they bought a ticket to the national champion or to the
Big Ten.
to the B1G
tough.
championship.
I don't know what the fuck's my hair doing.
So,
Watchers, look what my hair's doing.
I mean, when you buy that kind of ticket, I do feel like there's a huge amount of time that you have to buy it in advance, right?
Well,
so you're kind of taking a gamble, right?
It is a gamble, and these things are always crazy. And actually, it could really come into play for these upcoming games, for the playoff games, which I can tell you, I can break some news about, like, you know, how that's constructed and stuff like that. First of all, we got completely shafted. This is not just a Duck talking point. This is like every ESPN person, people who hate us even, are all like, huh, that's crazy. Oregon really got screwed over somehow by being the best team.
You want to know why?
What's that? Because they hate us.
Because we're the bad guys.
Kind of. Well,
because they need to make us the bad guys. We have to be that because the word Nike.
Should it?
That's it. There's no other reason. They've just.
I thought the bad guys were supposed to get unfair advantages and never fully.
Seemed to me like we kept it pretty classy, middle class on spending fucking Longhorns. Jesus Christ!
Not to get too political. Yeah, not to get too political, Aaron, but I thought bad guys in this country just kind of fell up and just won everything. Politics, Aaron. This is honestly, the bracket we're in. Yeah,
I'm gonna say this. I think the bracket is probably has a lot more to do with Vegas trying to not lose their ass,
I guess,
or doing that thing where maybe there's certain types who are able to play on a different level, so
racism
that
is what you're saying. I get it.
Probably. Aaron, that's definitely in there.
This is what I think. It's the first season of the 12 team playoff. And
dang.
First season, because it used to be 4. It honestly, if it was a 4-team playoff, we would be cooking. We would only have to win 2 games. Right. It would be awesome. But it's not. Of course. The one year.
Do we get a week off?
Yeah, we do get a bye. So that is huge. Great. Still, get this. So the bracket, first of all, top 4 teams, these were the conference champions. And if you were a conference champion, you automatically got to be in the playoffs. And you're going to be in one of the top rated top 4 conference champions. We're in the top 4 seeds. Obviously, that's us. We're number 1 seed. Number 2 seed on the other side of the bracket, who we may play, Georgia. All right? Because they beat Texas, unfortunately. Sorry. Number 3,
I know,
Boise State. The only team, their only loss is to us. Pretty close. They beat UNLV. And then number 4, my Sun Devils, who humiliated Iowa State.
You are kidding me.
Wrecked Iowa State.
Am I confusing myself whenever I believe that just a year or 2 ago they were absolute dog fire?
Last year they were 3-9. The year before that they were 3-9.
Right. Yeah. So
amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. Huge comeback.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I mean,
fun.
What happened?
Now,
what happened?
In our bracket, who you could argue this is the toughest draw again. We will play the winners of Tennessee and Ohio State. Whoever wins that game, we will play them in the Rose Bowl. So that
they're trying to keep that Rose Bowl classy. That's why it's so hard.
This is where it gets really hard. So we have to play one of those teams, which is both of those are pretty tough draws. We could, hey, we beat Ohio State before. We'll be favored against either of them, I think. If we were to win that game, the other side of the bracket is the winner of Texas and Clemson.
Well, that'll be Texas.
Texas lost to Georgia. Close game, but still kind of like the same shit over and over again.
Yeah.
Clemson barely squeaked by SMU to get in the last seed because technically they're the conference champions. So the winner of that will then play Arizona State. We'll really be rooting for Arizona State for a million reasons, but probably Texas is absolutely going to be favored in that game, at least. So it'd be Oregon versus Texas. I'm not 100% sure about this.
In the big game, it would be Oregon versus
No, this
Texas?
would be the semifinal, I do believe.
So we do not get to see them, no matter what shakes out. We would not be able to get to see them at the very beginning.
Is wrong, my friend. We can't see them in the national championship, and we can't see them in the first game. Yeah, it'll be in that second game if they keep winning. They'll have to win 2 games to get to that game. But so it's like, I guess we want to hope for that, because then it'll be like their third game, but I don't know. So the thing that is scary, though, that I do not like at all, I believe, I'm not sure, is we would have to play Texas. I'll ask Hith about this. I'm not sure. Possibly in Dallas.
Yeah, oh God.
Absolutely blow. It's like, why would a team with a lower seed get home field advantage? That sucks.
Also, that stadium has an inherent flaw with the sun.
The sun, yeah.
That we will be screwed.
Yeah, and Jerry Jones, he'll be there.
They did. Oh, it's so orchestrated, dude.
Did you see? I got
to start a YouTube channel about this.
It wasn't great, but it was fun enough. I was watching. Sometimes the NFL does these like kind of kid versions of their football game. Well, they'll be like, this game's in Springfield, and it'll be on Disney Plus. Yes. And the whole game will be Simpsons themed, and literally you'll see little representations of the game that's actually going on, but it looks like an N64 game, but it'll be like Lisa's there and Bart's there and Homer threw a touchdown, Yeah. And they'll have little jokes. It was pretty fun. But the funniest pairing was they had Mr. Burns in the box with Jerry Jones. And it's like, you guys get it. Those are perfect pairings for the same guy.
Yep.
Anyways, this is the worst thing. This is the thing that pisses me off the most. If everything goes chalk, if every higher seed, if every favorite wins, let's say we get past Texas. Hopefully that's not in Dallas. I still don't understand it. It's either going to be in the Cotton Bowl or the Orange Bowl. I would assume we would rather play in the Orange Bowl than the Cotton Bowl if it's Texas. But anyways, if everything goes chalk, then our reward for being the best team is we get to play in the national championship, which happens to be, this is already determined, in Atlanta, Georgia, against Georgia.
What do you mean against Georgia? Why?
If it went chalk, if Georgia beat everybody they're supposed to, they're the second seed, they're favored.
Got you.
It would end with us playing against Georgia.
In Georgia.
In Georgia. So it's literally like just about the hardest route you can go. I mean, we got to buy, so there is one thing. So part of me wants to complain about that nonstop. Part of me, which plenty of people are doing online, like the system's clearly a little weird. Part of me also wants to be like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go against every one of the supposed best teams, these blue bloods, and let's knock the crap out of them. That's how I feel. And it would be an amazing season. Like no one's ever played like this amount of games. Like
nobody's ever played the most insane season to ever be recorded in football history
and not lose games. That's what it would take for us to do it. But we'll see. We got a Heisman candidate on board, so anything's possible. Aaron, let's get some quick thoughts from our man, Hithliday of Addicted to Quack, on this subject matter. I'm sure he's sick and tired of it already. Hithliday, how's it going, my man?
Woo-woo!
It's going pretty well. I'm not sick and tired of it. It was an interesting game. It was nice.
We're not talking about the game. We're talking about the playoffs.
Oh,
and the seeding.
Oh yeah, I don't care. Oregon's better than all those teams.
That's how I feel. That is how I feel. I also thought our defense was going to come against Penn State and completely shut them down. Hithliday, you know how much I've been talking of, like, just bashing the Penn State offense, like all season long.
I don't think That I don't know how much you've been doing that. If you've been doing that, you haven't been paying attention. Like there's
I absolutely have. I've been saying that I hate watching Penn State. Their offense is boring. I don't like how much trickeration they have to do to get like
one. I heard that.
Down.
I remember that. Witness.
The trickeration was, I mean, that's one of the things we talked about with Andrew and Vince was that is like the trickeration was duplicative because most of it came out in like third and medium, third and short situations in which it was unnecessary because they had a good offensive line and good running backs who were going to pick that stuff up anyway. Where the trickeration or unconventional plays were necessary and useful was the situations where they were, because those plays, the Andy Kotelnicki, bag of tricks stuff was those plays have a very high success rate, and where they needed to deploy them was not third and short situations. They already had that situation on lockdown with the stuff that they were very efficient at due to having, arguably the best run blocking offensive line in the Big Ten, and, arguably the best, or at least from an efficiency basis, and hard to bring down pair of running backs in the Big Ten. Like you didn't need to bring that stuff out. And yet that was like 75% of the time when those plays came out is when it was like, that's highly duplicative. However, which remember me saying that on the podcast with Andrew and Vince? It was like, this is, you don't need that stuff then. When you needed it on was like second and long, third and long, and, a couple of first and 10s in which your efficiency is not great. And that was one of the things that changed. They actually, Penn State's offense changed up quite a bit. Almost everything that we saw in the conference championship game out of Penn State was not new. It was all stuff that they had put on film before, with one or two exceptions. They had a tendency breaker that they scored a touchdown on, but even that was only kind of like half so. It was the pass that they threw to Omari Evans. That they had Omari Evans as their guy getting behind the defense was not a surprise because he's their designated get behind the defense guy. But the half that was a tendency breaker was that they set it up with a play, which is their 6 offensive lineman set, where they take their standard left guard, Ione, they take him out of the formation, have him motion in. They've always run a run play on that before, that they went play action off of that. They'd never ever done that before. That's the only thing that they did that they'd never done before. Everything else was stuff they'd done before, but what they changed up was their tempo, their pace of play, their sort of general urgency with which they played football, and then also calling stuff in downs and distances. Like they rationalized their offense. The pace of play stuff, it's like, why I think you were crazy to say this was a boring, stupid, ineffective offense was that it was not boring, stupid, or ineffective. What they had was like a muscle car from before they forced them to put catalytic converters in them. It was like a 68 Camaro or a GTO 800, a huge engine in it, but which James Franklin insisted on driving around with the parking brake engaged. And it was like, that's what, remember me talking to Andrew and Vince about, like, I came back to the question like 3 times because I kept saying the thing that has me scared shitless about this game is what would happen if James Franklin looked in the mirror and said, I need to stop playing at a glacial pace. I'm going to be playing an offense that's going to score a lot of points. I need to not do the boa constrictor thing. and what would happen, if he, that's why I kept asking him, do you have any indication that he's going to, play. And they were like, well, we've seen him be effective, in like the 2-minute drill, in that situation where it's like, yeah, I know, that's what has me scared shitless. Remember me saying that,
Yeah.
And then he did it, and it's like, look, every time I write an article in which what makes me feel confident when I'm writing articles, is when I see, oh, this team doesn't have any talent, or this team has massive structural problems that can't be fixed by Saturday. But what scares me shitless when I write an article is when I detect, oh, this team has all the tools that they need to be a highly effective team, and they're just deploying them wrong. And that's what's been holding them back, because any team can just choose to stop making those bad decisions. And the Ducks have a very long history of teams discovering just in time to play the Ducks. So James Franklin looking down and being like, oh, have I been driving around in my muscle car with the parking brake engaged for all these years? Oh, what would happen if I just clicked chick? Oh, look, it goes real fast now,
Like, Hith, why didn't he do this against Ohio State?
That's the question know, man. I'm kind of starting to believe that, like, just like Ohio State fans throw around this, like, Ryan Day has a mental block about playing Michigan, that like maybe James Franklin has a mental block about playing Ohio State. And that, like Oregon walking into the conference, like these, while, and remember me, talking about how, like, I kind of like how Dan Lanning doesn't have any baggage, just like it kind of made me weirded out, when he played like teams like Washington and Oregon State that didn't beat him before, and that I was like weirded out by kind of the baggage that he was carrying into those games, and that I liked him going into the Big Ten because he didn't have any baggage with those teams, that he could just be businesslike, maybe sort of there's a flip side there where like James Franklin doesn't have any baggage with Dan Lanning, he doesn't have any of that, like, stuff. And so he can be like, he can look in the mirror and say, oh, maybe I should just go up tempo and, with this team, like play at a normal pace. And then also, as you say, with going back to the trickeration stuff, Katelnik can even be like, wait, I don't need to do this stuff on 3rd and 4. I can just have my running backs run the ball on 3rd and 4. Yeah. And like, oh, look, they were real effective. And I can save the other stuff that I don't want to call them gimmicks, but like, it's just, they're somewhat less conventional, they're less keep you on your toes stuff. I can, so like their third and, so the other part of Penn State's effectiveness in this game is that, and ineffectiveness in previous games, was that this was an atrocious offense on 3rd and long. 3rd and long, their success rate going into this game was 22.5%. And I can tell you why. It's because they were super predictable on, like all of the, first of all the trickeration stuff went out the window, and second of all, or to the extent that they would do any of it, it was the goofiest possible stuff. And second of all, that like I could tell you exactly what the play call, like it went from the most unpredictable stuff to the least unpredictable stuff. It was like 180 degrees opposite. And so when I say rationalized, it's both the pace of play stuff and the like, hey, let's be somewhat more unpredictable on 3rd and long. And then there's some other stuff too that has to do with it, that I don't want to talk about too much. They have to do with there's some low probability, like they connect on a couple of throws where it's like, man, seriously, he's throwing off his back foot and he connects on that. And I'm like, okay.
He had a pretty damn good game. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, there's, frankly, Drew Aller probably played the best game of his life. It's like, of course, if you're a quarterback who's not been super impressive, play the Ducks, you'll have the best game of your life. And then also there's I really don't want to talk about this too much. I did run it out, what the numbers are. It represents more scoring for Penn State than it represents the officiating. The refs weren't calling anything. Now it benefits Oregon. Like Oregon, I ran this out. Like I ran out the simulation of what would happen if they called everything they should have called, because I charted the game. Oregon, I think, scores 11 more points than they should have scored. It's basically Oregon gets 2 more touchdowns, but one of them would have been a field goal. So that's 11 more, right? Like 2 touchdowns would have come off the board, but one of them would have been replaced by a touchdown. One of them would have been replaced by a punt. So take Oregon score down by 11 points. With Penn State, it's take them down by 3 touchdowns, and I think one of them is replaced by a field goal. So take their score down by 18 points. So then you're in a
mainly because a lot of people do want to talk about this, and I think there's other people, listeners, that do want to know your opinion on this. Is like because it specifically felt like holding. They were like,
yeah,
we are
that,
not.
I mean, that was the main thing, but there's other stuff too. But when I mean, that's the main thing, and that's why it sort of benefits Penn State more than Oregon, because of it's the run play. It's specifically run plays where like the play is stopped, but then the running back cuts back the other direction, and then why is there nobody there to tackle him? Well, the answer why nobody's there to tackle him is because the backside defender is getting the shit held out of him. And that there's one play where that happens with Oregon, and there's 4 plays where that happens with Penn State, and they're all the giant runs.
I was shocked.
So the giant runs are happening because the refs aren't calling holding on the backside defender. And so that's what's, now there's other stuff going on. You're right. Like the very first thing you said about like Oregon's defense played like shit. Yeah. On top of everything that I've already said about Penn State rationalizing their offense, and some ref stuff, some sort of lucky plays, and a few other things, like on top of all of even taking all of those things into account, there's still some plays in which you can definitely see Oregon getting pushed around by Penn State's offensive line, which like part of that has to do with fatigue, when they run an entire drive that's nothing but run plays, Oregon sort of runs out, they run out of gas a bit. There's also some stuff where just like the linebackers are sort of like, no, man, that's not, you're out of position, dude. The safeties had both Tysheem Johnson and Kobe Savage played very poorly in terms of getting into the right spot. So like, there's on top of everything that we talked about. I also thought that, Tosh kind of got out coached. But going back to the you making fun of Penn State stuff, like, no, this is why they were in F+, the 7th ranked offense in the country. They're an extraordinarily efficient team. They have a really good offensive line. I heard a couple of podcasts where they're talking about, they're out their right tackle. Remember we talked about that on the podcast with Andrew and Vince, where like they had been on and off out that right tackle the entire season, and that the backup was a 5-star who had gotten like something like 40% of the snaps, and that it wasn't going to affect anything. Like, this is why you listen to me, guys. Like, that was the full strength, Penn State offense, which I've been trying to tell everybody is a good offense. All they need to do is remove the parking brake. And Oregon in the mint defensive structure, if somebody's insisting on running the ball, and the refs are letting them get away with this, that, and the other thing, they're going to do that.
Do you think the reason why the parking brake is gone is because they were like down 3 scores, and literally he's like, okay.
I mean, that might be part of it, but I mean, if you look at their opening couple of drives too, like they weren't doing the boa constrictor thing.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I sort of, I think that was probably from the get-go.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
He's you win this game, and suddenly you literally have the 1 seed, which apparently is a bad thing.
There's also now that we've sort of talked about the tactical level thing, there's now I want to discuss the strategic level, the strategic layer. The strategic layer is so all of those tactical level stuff is reasons that it all goes for the Penn State offense versus Oregon. Hold on a second. On the other side of the ball, the Oregon offense versus Penn State defense, this is not a contest. It's not a contest for all the reasons that were we discussed on the podcast and that were written about in my article, because Penn State's defensive backfield is a joke, and Oregon has multiple ways of neutralizing the only good thing that Penn State actually does on defense, which is the pass rush, in between having a good offensive line and the RPO stuff and rolling pockets and just having superior offensive talent. Penn State's defense is something of a paper tiger. They do it's half a paper tiger. The half that's for real is the pass rush, but Oregon has ways of dealing with it. In fact, there's really only one, of the officiating stuff, there's really only one play in which there's a missed holding flag on a passing play. And that's one in which it's kind of irrelevant. Like Oregon doesn't get a score on that drive anyway. They were going to stall out for other reasons. It's really just the run play, and it's similar to Penn State's, where it's like he stopped, but then he cuts back and the backside defender is held. But the rest don't call it. So Oregon gets a big run out of it. Anyway, so Oregon's offense versus Penn State's. Oregon's offense was always going to put up a bunch of points on Penn State's defense. All of that preceded, so given that Oregon was always going to put up those points, the question about the game being close or not only came down to whether Penn State was going to overperform their standard offensive output. And that question was only going to come down to whether or not they rationalized their offense. We've already talked about how they did so on a tactical level. Now, on the strategic level, here's why the game was never in doubt. And it goes to why Oregon selected the mint defensive structure.
I know why, Hifliday.
Go ahead. I'm interested.
Because to beat Oregon, you have to outscore Oregon.
Yes. Nice. And you want to complete that thought?
I think it is completed.
That's all I got, baby.
It's because Penn State is a run to set up the pass team and is a run to win team. And they only pass to complete their third downs and for sort of shock plays on first down. Even though they're really effective throwing the ball on first down, they don't really want to do it. And in modern college football, if you're playing a high scoring offense at the strategic level, at the high level, strategy level, you were going to lose football games playing that way. You were going to run out of time. And that's exactly what happens to Penn State.
So, I was noticing that they were having an issue of using too much time to help them. That was interesting.
This is exactly what I figured you were onto this, Aaron. This is what happens to. Okay, so possession count. In the first half, remember, Oregon gets the ball first. Both teams get seven possessions in the first half. Remember, first of all, Oregon steals a possession because they get that pick, right? So one of Penn State's possessions is abbreviated because it lasts 2 plays, and one of Oregon's possessions is abbreviated because it's a 1-yard touchdown run. And Oregon eats up all the clock at the very end of the first half. Now, there are some people who think that Lanning should have called a touchdown. He used his timeouts differently and gotten a touchdown instead of a field goal, whatever. He still uses up all the clock and gets a score at the end of it, right? And so Penn State, even though, they got the ball second, gets their 7th possession with only like 1 second left, and they have to take a kneel. So that means that in the first half, Penn State technically gets 7 possessions, but they really didn't. They really only got 5. Why? Because they threw a pick and then they had to kneel it out. And in those 5 possessions, even though they had a rationalized offense, and therefore got 3 touchdowns out of it, one of it, Oregon forces a punt, and another time they forced a field goal. Meanwhile, Oregon is like the unstoppable force that gets, nothing but touchdowns. Right? So Oregon gets more meaningful possessions and they're getting more touchdowns out of their possessions, in the first half. In the second half, first thing I need to say is when garbage time starts.
Shit. Is this about to be a hot take?
Well, some people may consider it to be a hot take. I don't think it's controversial if you really consider this intelligently. I believe that garbage time begins when Oregon makes the score 45-30.
Sure.
They expand the lead to 15 points. That happens with almost exactly half of the final quarter remaining. Penn State, the reason why that may be, some people may find that controversial, is that Penn State then goes on a scoring drive with their final possession. But if you look at that drive, it is uncharacteristic for Penn State. It is exclusively passes, with the exception of one quasi trick play, a wildcat run from the backup quarterback, which Oregon stuffs. But otherwise, it's all passing. Obviously, that is, so A, Penn State is behind by 2 scores. B, with the clock running out, in the final frame. C, it's completely uncharacteristic play calling. They never go on an all passing drive. And they're really heaving the ball downfield. This is non-representative play. Just because they get a touchdown does not mean that it's, representative in play and should be included. And it means because they're doing nothing but heaving the ball down the field, that means it's only a matter of time before they make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens? They make a mistake. They throw a game-ending, pick. On the they have to do this for every one of their subsequent possessions, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're down by 2 scores. Eventually, they're going to make a mistake and throw. Like they have to be perfect, is what I'm saying. Once the score becomes 45-30,
yes,
with that much time remaining on the board, they have to A, throw the ball on every snap, and B, they have to be perfect.
Yes.
They're not going to be perfect. They're going to make a mistake.
That's exactly what I was watching.
That's why it's garbage time. So, having established that 45-30 is the point when it's garbage time, that means it's actually very even. Or after that point, Oregon has 2 possessions. They basically are running out the clock on both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State has 2 possessions. They're basically in desperation mode on both of them. What that means is that they have, both teams have exactly three meaningful possessions in the second half. Oregon gets 2 touchdowns out of their 3 possessions, and the one in the middle is they get halfway down the field. They throw yet another Will Stein useless screen pass. That was the one bad part about the offense, was the screen pass. Like, they threw 10 screen passes in this game and succeeded on 2 of them. Like,
one was first drive, right? Like,
yeah. And there's another one where it's like it's a rollout throw, and it's like barely.
Is there any redeeming quality to those?
The horizontal stretches are it has a salutary effect on the defense, but it's not necessary. Their secondary is atrocious. You could have gotten the same, you could have gotten the same thing, but also pushed the ball down the field. And also it wouldn't have been reliant on blocking, which you couldn't do. Like, Oregon's perimeter blocking in this game and in many games is terrible. I don't know why Will Stein is not getting this through his head. So anyway, they fail on that one, but they had driven the ball all the way down the field, and they punted and pinned Penn State back at their 2-yard line. Now Penn State then gets the Derek Harmon thing, but whatever. I can still live with flipping the field. Like, Oregon, all 3 of those I'm going to consider to be successful possessions by Oregon. Penn State has 3 possessions on that are meaningful possessions. They're running the ball very, very effectively, but the first one empty possession, no points. The second one, empty possession, no points. It's basically a 3 and out. The third one feels terrible because that one is the all run possession. Although that's the one in which the refs, allow like 2 different holds on some explosive runs. So like it doesn't, it feels awful, but don't feel too awful. But don't feel awful. Part 2 is that's the one that takes too much time. Like they're down 2 scores. They failed to score. They're gonna get into the fourth quarter, and it takes them 3.5 minutes because they're nothing but runs. Like they have to, in order to execute the most effective part of their offense, which is running the ball and the refs and the refs letting them get away with it. They have to eat too much time. This is, to get to the strategic layer of this question. In order to execute this part of the offense, the non-desperation mode part of their offense, like they have to take too much time in order to do it because their offense isn't effective enough at the mixed bag approach that would move the ball effectively the way that Oregon's was. And thus they enter. And then when they can't stop Oregon on Oregon's next touchdown drive, like that's it. That's it. Like they're either going to be running the ball, which would take too much time, or they're going to be throwing the ball all the time in desperation mode, in which they're eventually going to make the mistake and the game is over. On the strategic level, the game is never in doubt because their defense can't stop Oregon's offense and their offense takes too much time. Even the rationalized version of their offense takes too much time. That's why teams that win national championships, even a rationalized version of it, don't look like this. And it's why Oregon chooses the mint defensive structure, which is designed to stop the pass and kind of doesn't. It takes as its dump stat stopping efficiency runs.
I get it.
Because efficiency runs will never beat a team that's complete in every other area.
I get what you mean when garbage time starts, specifically for, what you're doing. I would be lying if I said my heart wasn't racing.
That's amazing.
They had the ball with 2 minutes left on their 37-yard line and seemingly were unstoppable.
But that's just 20 years of training, of like just being abused as a fan, really.
Yeah,
so it's your bitter duck syndrome.
Exactly.
I have a strategy question. A strategical question.
Why did he go for 2 late in the game?
The analytics don't tell you to do that in that scoring
That's
situation.
What the commentators
kept saying that, and they're wrong. That they don't.
No, why would you it was a 2-score game and then you just go for 8 to make it a little bit harder for yourself? Like it made, especially that one made no sense. That was like me playing NCAA. Like, why not? It's fun. Yeah, I got nothing. I'm not paid millions of dollars. Anyways, Aaron, what were you saying?
Well, it's on that same level. What's the concept behind always lining up like we're gonna go for 2, but then switching to the extra point?
I think because there's no cost to that.
Yeah,
because if the defense gives you the right look, like they look at you like, what the hell is this? I don't understand how to defend this. Then you snap it and run in and get 2 points.
Got it. It literally is just like, let's see how smart you are, kind of a.
Even if there's an hour, like if they have to be like, okay, we got to dedicate an hour of practice time for Oregon's stupid little 2-point thing, then that's a win by just you having this thing.
Them having to waste practice time is on it, and then. The worst case scenario happened in this game, which is they took a delay of game because it took them too long to swing the gate back to get in the extra point formation. Oh, so they took 5 yards. Oh no, they kicked the pad because it's still, 5 yards on the pad is nothing.
The man with a golden foot, as they say.
Yeah. And so one thing that I felt very happy about, first of all, is that Dylan Gabriel apparently in games where it's like against the biggest opponents, he is stone cold. Like even picking up his own fumble.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about fumble luck, I mean, the same thing happens to Penn. Neither
that scared
team,
me shitless.
Yeah,
same thing happened to Penn State. Penn State had a bad. Remember, it was early in the game, but Penn State had a wildcat snap to warrant. It was like the second play of the game.
I was gonna count that for my super specific prediction. If that was a fumble, I've been like, it's not a pick, but he did cause a turnover in the wildcat, so I'm gonna count that. Yeah.
So like both teams put the ball on the ground once, and then they hopped on it once, so like even. Anyway,
I mean, I was just amazed that Dylan Gabriel, when it felt like, oh shit, this game could be turning if we don't, get our first down. It felt like there was always a man in the middle of the field, like for the first down.
But look, all of that is yes, that's true, but that shouldn't. I don't think that any of that should be. I don't think any of that should be a surprise or even that noteworthy, because it's all predicted and stuff that we've already talked about before, which is to say, number one, of course, there's a dude in the middle of the field. Penn State's secondary sucks. And whereas Oregon's offense and receivers are great. And then two, about Dylan Gabriel. Yeah, he's always been that awesome. Like in every game, he's that awesome. There's never been a game in which he wasn't that awesome. He's always been a Heisman level quarterback. The disdain for him is only been because it's only because expectations are sky high and he meets them. Like it's why Heisman conversations are always idiotic. Please do not get me started about Heisman.
We all know
the meta conversation about Heisman conversations. Anyway, my what I wanted to say is the only times folks have had like any sort of issue with Dylan Gabriel has like what we've talked about. The dude doesn't have a turnover issue. Look at all of his turnovers have been in low stakes games in which he's testing what the limits are for what this new conference defensive. So like they were against UCLA and Michigan State when they're standing on the goal line and he's trying to throw a little flare out or an out route or something like that. And he's like, let's see if the defensive back can burst on this fast enough to undercut and get the interception. Oh, shoot, he was. And then did you see that ever again? The only other pick that ever happens is late in the season against Wisconsin, where like
batted pass, right?
Yeah, it's a batted pass, and I mean honestly, it is on Dylan Gabriel and that he throws the ball behind the receiver. But I mean it's not of a piece of the other ones where the other ones it's like he's testing limits. Right. And so, of course, you see those in the low stakes games in which they're already standing on the end line. And of course you don't see those in the high stakes games. And so the hey, the Dylan Gabriel, I saw that Jeff Swartz tweet too. Of course, in the high stakes games, he has the highest level performances because that doesn't fit the pattern. The pattern was, testing limits in low stakes games is when those, those throws came. There was no need to do that against Penn State.
I'm just still amazed, I mean, could happen. Like he was coming up in huge clutch mode.
Dude, I mean, there were some throws in there though where they felt mega high.
But I mean, if you want to construct a narrative in which he's a ho-hum quarterback in ho-hum games, in high level games, he rises up and plays at a better level than he had played before, that narrative is false. He plays at a high level in every game, all the time, and
you just see QBs play at a high level, and then they played against someone with like even half of a defense, and they're like, "Oh shit, no, maybe not." And that's not the case whatsoever. I'm just amazed by him. Hith, out of all the, there's 12 teams in this here playoff. I wish there were only 4, but there's 12. Which teams do you think would give Oregon the best challenge? Is it a team we've already played? Is the other question.
Yeah, it's Ohio State.
Ohio State over Penn State because of what we've been talking about with James Franklin, the Franklinism of it. Well, that's pretty crazy that it's potentially.
I'm sorry, I haven't done the other side of the bracket. Like I will have an article that I will publish this week, later this week, in which I haven't charted them all yet, but I have acquired the film. I've acquired the complete film of all 11 teams, other teams, there, I guess 12 because I have all of Oregon's, that are in the playoffs. I haven't charted it yet. That would take a while. The Oregon will play a game against Tennessee or Ohio State. I have already charted all of Ohio State's film, so what I'm going to spend this time doing is charting all of Tennessee's film, and then
Don't bother, bro.
And then Tennessee has had a remarkably SEC schedule. And then I don't know. I'll do some select games of the other 3 opponents, but obviously we got some time before they would play in the quarterfinals game.
Yeah,
again,
pretty dang
Arizona
January
State, Clemson, and Texas. But what I've done for that side of the bracket, the Ohio State, Tennessee, Arizona State, Texas, and Clemson side of the bracket, is that I've done the preliminary charting work for all 5 of those teams. By which I mean with Ohio State, it's just straight up based on the chartings. But for the other 4 teams, I've acquired the complete play-by-play for all of those teams. And then I've corrected all of the record. I've eliminated the garbage time. I've done basic logic tests. I've gotten out duplicative plays. I've found the plays that weren't included for whatever reasons. You would be shocked by how much of the official play-by-play is just straight up wrong. And so I've made sure that they're not wrong, and because I have the film, I can go back for any given I'm like, wait a minute, that can't be right, I can go look up that particular play and get it right. And then exclude the stuff that's garbage time, etc. So there's still a couple of things that I'll wind up correcting, like, oh, wait, that wasn't a pass, that was a sweep play, so I need to change that from run to pass. And so there'll be like a little bit of fudging of the numbers, and then obviously the stuff that I learn from charting, like, oh, the character of this team is this and that. But the preliminary charting work gives me the pretty accurate fundamental stats for each of these teams. And so I will be publishing that article later in the week. And the answer to the question of which of the 5 teams that are in, but I haven't done that work for the other side of the bracket. The Georgia, Penn State, Indiana. Well, I have Indiana already, but Notre Dame, and I have Penn State obviously already, but I haven't done it for Notre Dame, Georgia, Boise.
Hold on.
Yeah, it's been a while since you had to look at Boise, but
yeah, that's true. I have it, a little bit done for Boise, but what's
Penn State gets to go to the playoffs?
Yeah, maybe. Why wouldn't they? They arguably
loser.
They arguably, I mean, they got to play an extra game, so that's not true. But
gray mayonnaise.
Their path,
that's what it is.
The gray mayonnaise offense. Yeah. In my head, I just
so anyway. You asked me a question like, which is the team?
Oh yeah, right.
That like, and I can at least for Oregon's half of the bracket.
Yeah,
right. So the 1-4 side of the bracket. I don't have a good answer for you yet for the 2-3 side of the bracket, but for the 1-4 side of the bracket, the answer is. The team with the best numbers from charting is Oregon. The team with the second best numbers from charting is number 8, Ohio State. The team with the third best numbers from charting is the 5 seed Texas. The team with the next best is the 12 seed Clemson. And then Tennessee, and then Arizona State. Arizona State's defense is not good enough. Really, the only thing that Arizona State does well is that they have a very efficient rushing offense and an explosive passing offense. But the other halves of their offense, the efficiency in passing and the explosiveness in rushing, which is surprising because all you can ever remember about Cam Scadaboo is that it is the explosive runs, but they just don't hit it's just their runs when they hit them that are explosive are super explosive. They're like for 50 yards, but they're not hitting like 10 yards regularly, which is what you really need to see in order for it to be a threatening offense. So it's like, yeah. Anyway,
the ASU diehard, I would agree with you there. Yeah.
So like given that Clemson and Texas are both, Arizona State's on the bottom and Clemson and Texas are both, from fundamental per play, charting numbers, more effective teams. Like I find it hard to believe that Arizona State's going to win that game. On the other hand, they do get the break, and it could be that Texas and Clemson beat each other up. They're already somewhat beat up, already, although they do get a couple of weeks off before the game, But if Arizona State pulls that one off, it'll be the story of the season.
It would break my heart to have to plow through them to get.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's just like going through. I mean, and frankly, what it is. Like one of Arizona State's 2 losses is to Cincinnati, in which they have to sit their core. I don't know why, but Leavitt isn't playing, and it's Jeff Sims. That Jeff Sims, and it's totally Jeff Sims who loses them that game to Cincinnati. They kind of derp it again. Their other losses to Texas Tech, and they kind of derp it. But that's what I can say from. I mean, I didn't watch the film, although I've been sort of casually watching a lot of Arizona State games. But then, running out the numbers, they're playing with fire in a lot of their games. Arizona State is, and a whole lot of it is Kenny Dillingham kind of manufacturing stuff. Remember in 22 when he was Oregon's offensive coordinator, and they were just doing a lot of stuff where it was it's clock manipulation, where it's denying the opponent that last possession, that guy is clearly studied the analytics and how to manipulate the clock so that they can eke out an extra possession and deny the opponent an extra possession, and just a whole bunch of it is they're winning games where maybe by the numbers they're behind. And it's because Dillingham is just better on that level as a coach than a lot of the, crustoids, and gym teachers that he's going up against. But at some point he's just going to play a more talented team, which both Texas and Clemson clearly are. And playing gym teachers in the Big 12,
would have to be a shootout for him to win.
Scatterbo would have to do Heisman stuff. It would be the other thing,
which he's kind
of been doing it all year.
In my head, I need someone to take out Georgia, because I don't want to play Georgia in Atlanta.
Georgia's been doing a pretty good job of taking themselves out.
That's a very good point. And no Carson back. And Georgia's just been, ugh. But they won the SEC, which definitely says something about the SEC. Let's get into our next segment, which is, I don't want to do the bowl pick'ems yet. I want to wait a week. All right?
We certainly got some time to kill, don't we?
Got a ton of time. I really just wanted to pick the Big 12 and such. I'm honestly, it scares me. I would almost rather have it be once the playoffs start, it's and then 7 days later is the next game, and then 7 days later, it is not that. It's a 10 game stretch in between all these. Yeah. Which it kind of
I was mapping it, because I get recordings of all of the Big 10 games, because I got to I get my film library ready to go for next season, right? Oregon State and Oklahoma State, 2 of Oregon's non-conference opponents next year, did not make bowls.
Yeah,
but Montana State, number 1 seed in the playoffs. I got to keep clicking over to the FCS side to find out. So they're setting up for a deep run. In fact, everybody should watch on this Friday, 3 days from now, Friday the 13th, are playing Idaho in the Oregon Bowl, right? Idaho, Oregon's FCS opener this year, is playing Montana State, Oregon's FCS opener next year. It should be a hell of a game. It's on ESPN. I believe it's I believe it's at noon on Pacific time, but you can look it up. Just ESPN Main. You don't even have to have ESPN Plus to watch it. It should be like this Friday, the 13th. If you're still jonesing for college football, I'm not kidding. It should be a hell of a game.
Idaho rules.
And it's
all of Idaho.
Idaho's great, but Montana State's even better. Like they're undefeated, and they really only played like one close-ish game this whole year. Like they are awesome. You should totally watch that game. So anyway, I'm doing all that recording, and yeah, that's the weirdest part of the bowl calendar is that it's like, yeah, it's like, you know, lame-o bowls, then playoff games, then right back to lame-o bowls.
Yeah. and the Bulls are getting, let's be real, like, power to the players, but the Bulls are getting worse because, like, and you don't know who's playing until the day before. They're just truly becoming just, you know, exhibition games, I suppose I'm fine with.
Yes, 100%.
Like that's kind of what they always were, and the playoff.
But now, rather than selling roses, it's selling Cheez-Its.
Hell yeah! By the way, James Franklin. There's a wonderful video where James Franklin's having the post-game presser. Oh, yeah. And you hear he's trying to answer, and the Duck band is just being like, and he's just like, you know what he says? He's basically like, "This is Bush League. Like, come on, guys.
This is a JV operation," and he's real mad. And it's like,
well,
hey,
win,
you know.
Win the game.
Yeah, I can think of one other JV operation.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you had a home field advantage for this game, which I've heard. I had a friend who was there, and she told me it was a really weird thing where it's just like, yeah, we saw some Ohio State fans there.
Oh, I heard that.
Some Indiana fans there, and then there was a bunch of people wearing Penn State stuff that you would then go and talk to them, and like she was saying like, yeah, my boyfriend was, you know, talking shit with them, and then they would be like, oh, I'm not actually like that much of a Penn State fan. I'm wearing this shirt and showed up to the game. So I don't know what the situation was there, but
my brother-in-law's
some of Penn State's attitude, you know.
Yeah.
The players were like, I was planning on going to New York this weekend. I didn't really know we were going to be playing this week.
Yeah, I was ready to root for Ohio State. So really weird vibe there. Makes total sense why Duck fans, and I think there is going to be a lot of this, who are like, I don't want to spend the money or energy to go to Indiana when I could go, you know, I want to go to the Rose Bowl. I don't need to go to every single game, or I want to go to the Natty, or
hey, look, in this in the Tennessee versus Ohio State game, every Oregon fan ought to be rooting for hell, like hell for Tennessee, for a variety of reasons. Number one, there's, you know, Oregon, Tennessee have that, you know, affinity that goes back to the 2010, 2013 games, like, you know, Ducks pull trucks. Number two, Ohio State fans travel. You know, when I was out at the Rose Bowl, it was just like there's just a ton of Ohio State fans. You know, like you want where, you know, Oregon fans, for the reason that you just said. You know, if there were anybody who were saving their money, like that Rose Bowl could definitely be all green if you get a Tennessee opponent.
Very true.
In that game. You know, which you definitely want. And then also I ran the numbers, like, you want to see Tennessee. You definitely want to see Tennessee, not Ohio State. So everybody root for Tennessee. And you know what? Tennessee, like everybody talks about Nico Iamaleava, like really where Tennessee butters its bread is they have a very good defensive line. And they may be able to take advantage of Ohio State's, you know, offensive line situation and Chip Kelly's like weirdness to get it done. Like if they get it done, I bet it'll be for that reason. And then Oregon will have, you know, just like when they dealt with Penn State, you know, some ability to neutralize that. You know, they'll have some time to figure out how to neutralize that because they'll know it's coming.
All the time in the world. Yeah. Dear Lord.
Although, unlike Penn State's offense, which from a strategic perspective, like that was always a losing proposition, even the rationalized version with Tennessee, you know, because it's more of a passing, you know, deal because, hey, Josh Heupel, you know, Oregon won't have that strategic strategic advantage, they will actually, maybe have a fight on their hands. Like, I still, like them more because Tennessee's a team that lost to Arkansas and just played really a joke. I mean, they had a 2-game schedule. I mean, the 2 games were Georgia and Alabama. I don't really know what that means, but I mean, I'm serious. Go look up Tennessee's schedule. They basically played 4 byes. I mean, like, it's crazy how bad that schedule is. They played like 4 different teams that are sub 100 in F plus. They played an FCS team, Kent State, UTEP, Mississippi State, which are all just terrible. They played like the entire bottom of the SEC, and the SEC had a bad year. They lost to Arkansas. They went to overtime against Kentucky. Yeah, like their entire season was 2 games, and they lost one of them.
Hope. Let us pray we play against the Volunteers. Well, we got some business to finish here, and that is right. The picks.
The picks.
That is right. Making it big. We got picking the big bottom, the final week of it before we get into bowl bonanza. So we started off number 20 UNLV at number 10 Boise State. I was worried about picking against Boise State. I originally picked them because it was kind of felt obvious, but then I had to change it because I wanted a chance of catching up with it.
Right. I remember that.
The reason why I was worried is because it was like, well, this is one of the only ones with an actual home field advantage. And it, in my opinion, could not have mattered more because it was snowy as hell. There was plenty of times where UNLV nearly got there, and it looked as if the quarterback's hands were like ice chunks. He could not throw this thing.
I completely agree with you.
It played a huge.
Agree with you.
Huge.
I think if they played that at a neutral site or like in sunny Southern California or something like that, this game is a hell. I don't know if UNLV wins.
Yeah,
but I think it's not a blowout.
Not a blowout. They don't tear down the goalposts and throw it in the river. It felt cool for Boise State, but it didn't. Like I'm one of the people that is saying, do they really deserve number 4 and a bye? I mean, hey, they only lost 1 game, and it was to the number 1 Oregon Ducks.
They're number 3.
They're number 3. Yeah.
They got put over Arizona State.
In my head, I'm like, Arizona State and Boise State are pretty damn similar teams, except Arizona State has proven more. And if you're saying Jaunty or Scadaboo, they're different, but they're kind of the same. And I just think Arizona State can do more.
I haven't really run out the numbers for Boise State. I'm in a weird position on that one because I have run out the numbers for Arizona State and I haven't for Boise State, and so I hate being in that position because information asymmetry makes me uncomfortable.
I'm following my heart. And Arizona State is a better team. I would love to see these teams play against each other. Honestly, it would be. I don't because I'd be in the national championship, but I would have loved to see these two in a bowl game. This would have been like Las Vegas Bowl in years past. It was just kind of too damn cold. Every time UNLV got something going, they turn over the ball or turn over on downs or something like that. And Ashton Shanti, he only had 1 or 2 giant explosive plays, but that was enough. Low scoring game. Hey, congratulations to Boise State. You got to respect them. It's cool they're in the playoffs. Really strange situation that they're number 3 though. If this was a 4-team playoff, I wonder what.
I honestly think they did it to avoid putting them in the bracket with Oregon. I actually think I can detect a lot of the committee kind of bumping things around a little bit to avoid certain things.
Are you saying rematches or
I think, some of that, and also just there's. I don't want to run through all of it, and this is a different comment than saying the system as set up about like who gets automatic buys and the conference championships and where conference championships get preferred into the thing. And I without endorsing that, just saying the committee operating within the rules, that had been laid out for them, where they put certain teams. I can detect, movement of teams to avoid like, okay, let's not have them in the same bracket as them. And let's take, this team. Okay, so you didn't play a conference championship game, let's, punish you this way, or you did and you lost, so let's reward you in this way. Like, I actually think where they see, like, again, not defending the rules necessarily, but within the rules that existed, I actually think each of the placements for the teams makes a lot of sense, or at least I can detect logic and not just like randomness or yeehawness to where the 12 teams were placed. Yeah.
I get you. But hey, Boise State's there. They got an opportunity. We'll see what happens. I would love for them to win because I think we could take them. Let's see what we got. Number 16, Iowa State versus number 15, Arizona State. Couldn't have been happier with this one because it was a complete blowout. ASU just had everything fall their way. Iowa State isn't a great team either.
It wasn't. Oh, okay. From the fundamentals, Arizona State did outperform Iowa State. They were a better team in this game. Yeah. But it was, from the fundamentals, it should have been more like a 10-point win.
I agree.
It was a blowout because the third quarter was here's the entire third quarter: turnover, touchdown, turnover, touchdown, turnover, touchdown. Like, Iowa State, like, literally spent the entire third quarter like taking the snap, turning the ball over, handing it to Arizona State for like a short field touchdown. So like, you go from, I mean, Arizona State had the lead at halftime, but it was still a competitive football game. And then the third quarter was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a blowout.
So bad for Iowa State. And ASU is good enough on offense to take advantage of it.
Well, yes, I mean, definitely.
It was so damn unlucky, though, honestly.
Unlike certain, you're right to note that there are certain teams that would get a turnover and then be limited to a field goal or something or even miss the field goal. Yeah. So, you'd be right to wag. If Arizona State were a fraud, they wouldn't, turn those into touchdowns. So you're right about that. And also, from fundamentals, they were better than Ohio State. Like, there was, nobody should go brigade this person, so I'm not going to say the name of the podcast. But while I was out hunting film on Arizona State, and one of the things, one of the places that I go looking for film is YouTube.
I know who you're talking about.
I ran across a podcast that covers the entire Big 12, and actually I accidentally started playing this person, and actually his voice is Adam. When you for the Quack podcast, you do your like 50s white bread radio announcer voice, like he does that voice, but all the time and sincerely. And I was like, is this a joke?
Is this Adam?
Yeah. So anyway, so this guy, like the whole, and I went and looked up his stream, and it's like, this dude hates Arizona State. Like, he's like actually all the Pac-12 newcomers. He spent the entire season just dumping all over the newcomers and predicting all of them to lose. And of course, Arizona State and Colorado, just wrecked shop in the Big 12. And so it's like his final podcast, was predicting Iowa State to blow out Arizona State. And I was just like, this dude's a clown, It's just like, if your predictions are this far off, like, I don't understand why you still have a podcast, man. Like, you should have just shut down the operation. And I was thinking, because one of the more recent ones that we did was with Roman Tomashov, for Washington, where I've gotten, a couple of Duck fans, for obvious reasons, because it's Washington, are just like, oh man, why do you interview this guy? He clearly has purple and gold glasses on. I'm like, look, man, I like Roman because he does. he'll put a happy face, on certain things, but he's honest. He's intellectually honest. And when I ask him a tough question, he doesn't dissemble. He doesn't cover stuff up. He doesn't give the company line. He honestly investigates stuff, which most Seattle media doesn't. They just stupidly parrot whatever the UW tells him, and he doesn't make stupid predictions. Like, he doesn't make ass backwards predictions about stuff. Usually his predictions are dead accurate, unlike this dude that I ran into who was clearly had an axe to grind and, was just dead wrong. It was just like, Rome was a real deal. And I mean, that's the deal. That's why this project that we've been engaged in, I guess I'm going to turn this back on you, Adam. Like, man, like, I've been really appreciative of this project and our collaboration because, it's very effective. We do not make ass backwards predictions. We make good predictions, and, we never have any reason to shut the podcast down or live in embarrassment. And because we have a good process, and a cornerstone of that good process is that you find us good people to talk to whose signal quality is not that they have a great sounding voice on radio.
Yeah.
Their signal quality is that they can withstand my gaze.
Sometimes it's both. Sometimes we get a Matt Bagley and he has perfect radio voice and he knows what the hell he's
That's true, but you also find people, but a lot of times you find people who are a little goofy, but they're a little goofy who can, but they stand up.
Yeah. Oh, weird. People who like numbers are a little weird.
Yeah, or they're not white bread.
Yeah, I want to find a way to get Hode
proud of in our
Rubino.
podcast series.
I want to get Hode
man,
Rubino
I really
back
hope
on the
that
pod.
Arizona State makes it through so we can talk to Hode Rubino. I was really pulling for being able to talk to Jack Barsh again. I was, there's a bunch of folks, like kind of thing of Big 12 or Big 10 as we were talking to a lot of Norwegians, I dug about the Pac-12s. We were talking to Rob Wong. Yeah, and we're talking to Alicia D'Artola.
Yeah, every once in a while we would talk to a not man. It'd be
cool. I do dig that we talked to Rohan Chakravarti. Like his story, Rohan from California, cool. Being the Wisconsin writer is kind of cool. But yeah, we do wind up talking to a lot of Norwegians. It'd be cool to talk to Hode Rubino again.
This is a little tangent, but another person, I won't put them on blast either. This is early when we were doing the interviews. I'll never forget when we were talking to a Wazoo guy.
Yeah, right.
And this guy genuinely couldn't name a player. Like, I know, man. Like, he was ready to talk. He was like willing to be like, yeah, an hour plus, let's do it. And then we go for a long time. We're like, okay, so like we want to talk about this Wazoo offense. Like, who are you excited about? And he like a 4-minute answer about how excited he is for the Wazoo offense, and like, and there's just a lot of good players and stuff. And I remember Hifliday like taking a moment and being like, so who are they? And then couldn't name a player. Like,
it was more specific than that. He was talking about an aspect of Wazoo's passing offense that wasn't true. That it was a deep passing offense. And I was like, no, it's not. It's an air raid offense that they only do short passes. And it was like, no, there's this one dude who's always going deep, and the question was like who. And it was like, I don't have an answer to that. Yeah, you don't have an answer to that because that player doesn't exist in the structure of Wazoo's offense. I don't think you understand the structure of Wazoo's offense. This podcast is a scratch, man. And Adam, to your credit, that podcast, actually, I think you did publish that one because
I have a strategy.
But what you did was on short notice, you turned around and you found us a real interview.
Yeah.
And you got us a good person. I think it was the Kook Center guys.
Yes, it was.
And we got a real interview. We did not miss that week. We got a real interview out, and
I have a strategy.
My questions answered.
It's happened a couple of times. If I get a dud interview, I don't want to be so rude as to be like, this is not going anywhere. This guy's right here, because that's a little too rude. What I do is I put them on the Quack 12 podcast website, not the one with our RSS feed. It doesn't make our actual feed. It's just a page on the website. And so I can send them a link and be like, hey, here you go. You can
here
send
you
this
go,
to your
buddy.
friends and family. And then I find a real interview for the RSS feed. That's the way it's like giving your like young nephew a controller that's not plugged in. Be like, yeah, no, you're playing too.
No, you're doing great, buddy.
You're doing fucking awesome, man. You're every bad guy. Okay, number 5, Georgia versus number 2, Texas. Couldn't be less impressed with the SEC watching this game. I mean, it was a fun game for defense.
It just means more field goals.
Yes, it does. And sometimes
my God, this picture.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't think you caught this last year, man. Last week. This UGA, this UGA is horrible.
He's so sad.
It's from 1941. It's like that's the best drawing you could get. Like, was it a joke at the time that this drawing's so bad? It's 1941. It says it on his collar.
Is it bad?
I mean,
objectively, I think it's a great drawing.
It's off-putting. I'll say that.
Oh,
like I don't know if you needed Salvador Dali to draw your mascot here. I genuinely think of the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark artwork. If you're familiar with that, it totally looks like that.
Yeah.
Georgia played like this dog looks on offense. Texas does have a good defense, seemingly. And so Texas had lost, as we know, in pretty big fashion. Like the score was worse than it actually was, but they just like committed too many mistakes. And then Georgia just really took advantage and suddenly it was a blowout in the first matchup. This game, first half, Texas had everything going for them. They were getting yards, they were getting stops, and they had nothing but like 6 points. Nothing but 6 points to really show for it. And then Georgia, even having an injury to Carson Beck, because they did a pretty, I don't know about, maybe I'm thinking like overblowing this, Hith, but I thought it was stupid as hell to go for that Hail Mary at the end of the half. Am I being too much? Like,
I don't even remember what you're talking about.
So,
I was kind of drunk at the time.
Nice. Georgia, they were down like 6-3. There's like 2 seconds at the half. They got a long ass Hail Mary. And so they're like, okay, let's go for it. Carson Beck, that's the play that he gets injured.
Oh, that play. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that was dumb.
I think it's like, and like maybe it really cost you, Georgia, because it seems like Carson Beck is seriously fucked up. I don't think
he can still take a snap and hand off good as F. So that's the most important quality at Georgia.
That's true. Maybe he'll throw less interceptions. So maybe that's good. But they have to put in the backup. They have to throw in the backup QB. But then he comes in, scores a touchdown. And that's kind of all they needed because Texas's offense was donezo. They missed a couple of field goals. And in the end, Carson Beck comes in, hands off the ball one time. But to be fair, too, like Georgia's QB also threw like a nasty pick that nearly cost him the game.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's a kid. Like he kind of, I mean, that was what happens at the end of the game. I'm remembering this now. What happens at the end of the game is that Georgia basically had it sewn up. They just need to kill the clock on the drive. And the kiddo quarterback throws maybe the dumbest pick I have ever seen. Like there was not a Georgia player for 30 yards. Like you didn't see a Georgia player on the screen.
No.
Like I think
and there was no reason to throw even. Like
I think maybe he was trying to throw the ball away.
Yeah.
But even then, like what you don't throw the ball away, you're trying to eat the clock. But anyway, and just you can't get it all the way to the sideline. And so the Texas player intercepts it. And so then that like sets them up so they, they can go down, kick a field goal, force overtime, and then Texas can't win in overtime, which is why, like, okay, I'm not really worried about Texas. Like, and that's the other thing is like Sark's offense is figure outable, like, which is what actually, okay. So there's an offensive lineman you've never seen at Oregon. His name is Junior Ongelau. Oregon got him actually the year before they got Nishad Strother in the transfer market. But I did the entire film study on Junior Ongelau. I actually really liked him, but the problem was, and he played for Texas, and he played for the first couple of years of Sark at Texas. And then he got hurt and so he missed he missed 1 year at Texas, and then he hit the transfer portal, and then he transferred to Oregon, and then he was hurt for every year that he was at Oregon, and then he just medically retired. So basically, he was the starter for 2 years at Texas, and then he was a redshirt freshman, and then he started for 2 years at Texas, and then he missed every other year with injury. That's why you've never seen him, and why nobody's seen him in like 5 years. So like everyone has forgotten about this guy except for me. I really actually liked him at the time. I thought if he could ever get healthy, he was like, he was in line to play at starting level for Oregon at, he had Oregon caliber line grades. But the thing that was infuriating about doing that film study, project was that like the number one factor limiting Texas's offensive production was Sark needing to prove how clever he was. Like I came to just despise Sark's offense from doing the junior, because it was like, because that's what you're doing when you're reviewing offensive line play, is that like you have to evaluate what the entire structure of the play is to figure out because they don't give you the playbook. You have to figure out what the play is supposed to be, and then evaluate, okay, so how well did the offensive lineman play within what the play was supposed to be? And it was over and over and over again, and it was just like, you shouldn't be asking this guy to do this. Like I was just like, every play I was just getting madder and madder at Steve Sarkisian for asking his offensive line, which was really good, just by putting him in stupid spots. Like I hated how, like, gimmicky is not the right word. Now I put it okay, Joe Moorhead, who I did a whole project on when he was at Penn State, and was like by far the best offensive coordinator that they've had. And like, I really love Joe Moorhead. I loved him at Oregon. The stuff that Cristobal put him through. I did, it wasn't just Penn State, but I watched him at Fordham, and I watched him at the service academies that he was at. Like, I really like, Joe Moorhead. That dude is clever, but didn't feel the need to prove he was clever. He just was clever. Like, Sarkisian feels the need to prove that he's clever. He's like a B grade intellect who wants he's like Fredo in Godfather 2. Like, I can totally see Steve Sarkisian being like, I'm smart, I can do things not like everybody says. Like, yeah, I need John Cazale, like, may rest in peace, to play Steve Sarkisian in the movie. Yeah, he's that guy. Whereas Moorhead is maybe like Sonny, who gets shot up at the way station.
Have you been following Sarkisian? Like, you probably weren't doing film study when he was in the Pac-12, were you?
I was watching tape. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, nice.
That dude was a 7 winner for a reason.
7 winner, that's right.
I mean, he was drinking back in those days, so I don't really hold it against him.
That was before the reform school. But
yeah, but I mean, that's no excuse now. Like, I mean, people can. I mean, this is one of the things that life teaches you, is that like, suffering doesn't make you a better person. Like, one's personal travails or reasons for sympathy. They don't necessarily build character.
Yeah. Sometimes when you become sober, you just realize I'm still
no, you're just underneath all of that. You're still just an asshole. Like,
yeah. And Texas now, and this is a talking point. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe it means a lot. But it's like, they have no wins against a top 25 team at this moment.
Their schedule's
interesting.
Yeah, they do look like kind of. Sorry, Aaron.
And like, look, no,
that's all right.
When we talked about this, about this game, last week, when we were making the predictions, what I said was just like, I don't understand why Texas is favored in this game. Like, what's different?
Yeah.
The last time Georgia played them, Georgia beat them because their Texas, hasn't played anybody good. And when they do, the good defensive line eats their offensive line alive because their offensive line isn't ready to compete in the SEC. And then what do we see in this game? Oh, they didn't score any points because the SEC, Georgia's good defensive line ate them alive. It's like, yeah, no shit. Like, why the hell did anybody expect any different than this result? Like, the only reason it wasn't a Georgia blowout was because Georgia's, offense was limited by, the fact that they can't complete a pass, for 2 reasons. 1, they couldn't go into the game, and 2, then their quarterback got hurt.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because it's like the quarterback injury. You can definitely be like, yeah, the second half. That's why some of this was rough. But also, wasn't it like one of the only touchdowns they scored was the backup QB because Carson Beck wasn't really getting it done either. George is kind of a tough one to figure out. Like what is their?
I mean, their best claim to fame is that like they've gotten, they've beaten 3 teams that are in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right. Like they beat Tennessee, they beat Texas, they beat Clemson. And if Alabama had cheated their way into the playoffs, their only loss would have been to or their second loss would have been to another team in the playoffs. The question is like, I don't really think any of those teams are very good. None of those
Alabama would have had an easier non-con.
Yeah, exactly. I sort of think it's sort of, it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I just sort of think the SEC's had a not great season this season.
Seems like it. I just don't want them to make the Natty because I don't want to play them in Atlanta. But maybe I should just be full duck confidence, being like,
I want Tennessee to beat Ohio State, and then on the other side of the bracket, this is I haven't done any data support. This is sort of my gut, but just like the other side of the bracket actually looks like a lot more even.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of just like looking at that bracket: Indiana, Notre Dame, Penn State, Boise State, Georgia. There's one other team I'm forgetting, I think. I could sort of just see all of those guys beating each other up. And then whoever sort of like, I'm not saying that any one of those teams is as talented and awesome of a team as Ohio State is. Like Ohio State emerging from the other side of the bracket would be like, that's the final boss, kind of deal. Whereas, this actual bracket, the 2-3 side of the bracket, like, I don't know, there's a final boss coming out of that, but I do think that sort of looks like a more balanced side of the bracket. And like, it also sort of looks like, man, I kind of think those teams are going to beat each other up. And I kind of think that, I mean, honestly, it could be that like if Ohio State wins in against Tennessee, that the Rose Bowl is the actual national title. Kind of like how the Miracle on Ice wasn't the semifinals, not the finals. You know what I mean?
You always forget that. Yeah. I have a tough time imagining Penn State losing to SMU or Boise State.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they maybe Penn State shot their shot.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think that's actually what it is.
Actually, I don't think so. That doesn't really strike me.
You're like, now that Aaron agrees, I don't know about that one. I didn't watch a minute of this game because there is a great Oregon-Penn State game going on. Number 17, Clemson versus number 8, SMU. However, I do know Clemson had a big old lead. Then SMU rallied back, but not quite enough. That certainly, I think, says something about the ACC, where like SMU, the top team, still loses to this pretty flawed Clemson team. But I mean, it's still
Clemson. Well, Clemson's more talented. SMU just had like everything go against them. Like they threw. I don't have the play-by-play in front of me, but they threw like 2 pick sixes or something like that to begin the game. It was just like the worst possible start, and then they fought their way back. Something like that. I suppose I could look it up.
SMU's schedule definitely makes me. I haven't watched a bunch of SMU at all because ACC's been pretty irrelevant. But their schedule doesn't exactly have me thinking that they're a top tier team. One loss to BYU really early on, and now to Clemson.
Yeah, here it is. So SMU fumbles on their first possession, and so Clemson gets a short field touchdown. Then they punt, and it's like a kind of a shanked punt. And there's a penalty on it, so Clemson gets another short field touchdown. So basically, like within 2 minutes of the game starting, SMU starts down 14 points. And then and then Clemson or SMU goes on a touchdown drive, and then Clemson goes on a touchdown drive. It's like, okay, we have a competitive game, and then SMU immediately throws another interception. Oh my god! And then they settle into like a very ACC, missed field goal punt contest for the rest of the second quarter.
Of course,
but because of the points that SMU had spotted them, it's 24-7 in a game that's really more like 10-7. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the game is SMU's game. Like SMU outplays Clemson and like actually outplays them in the entire second half. Basically, Clemson only gets like 2 field goals or something like that. No, they get a touchdown and a field goal, and even the touchdown is like on half a field. And how did they get?
Good old Clemson.
They get a long kick return. They get that walk-off field goal at the end of the game. That's how they won the game.
Yeah.
And the touchdown that Clemson scores in the third quarter is on like half a field because of a punt return. So like Clemson gets very little done in the second half. Meanwhile, SMU goes from 7 points to 31 points, meaning they get 3 touchdowns and a field goal on one and only punt once, right? So on 5 possessions, they have 1 punt, 1 field goal, and 3 touchdowns. In other words, like if SMU doesn't spot them that 14 points at the beginning of the game, SMU wins this. Like I don't have this in right in front of me right now, but like probably they SMU's the better team.
It seems like it. And then Alabama would likely be in, and what a fun world that would be. Clemson. They're frauds.
Well, no, SMU would have the auto bid.
Would they have the? I thought it was like because Clemson won, SMU is in, but if SMU would have won, Clemson wouldn't have been in.
Well, SMU would have won, so they would have had to be the 12th seed, or would have had one of the of the 5 AQs.
Yeah.
And they, I don't know, maybe they eat Tennessee's spot. No, they wouldn't eat Tennessee's spot. Alabama would just be out.
Well, it's still hard to believe in my head, but Clemson, I don't think they're very good. I don't like that team very much at all. Clemson versus Texas, that's a weird game. I wouldn't want to bet on that.
Which of the at-larges would you leave out for Alabama at that point? The at-larges are they're not going to leave out Penn State. You're not going to leave out Indiana. You're not going to leave out Notre Dame.
Yeah, I guess who do you kick
Tennessee?
Out? Clemson wouldn't be in. Clemson would be out if they would have lost this game.
Right.
Yeah, and then so don't.
Well, I guess that would be the question. If Clemson lost, Clemson lost a conference championship game, would you really leave out Clemson for Alabama? That would be the question.
That's the question. Like a Clemson that if no one's stoked about right now. I don't know. Good question.
What would Clemson's record be?
They lost to Georgia. We certainly know that. And then did they lose to like Louisville, right? Lawville?
Oh, they'd be 9-4 with a conference championship loss. Because they lost they got stomped by Georgia in the opener. They lost to Louisville. They lost to South Carolina.
I think losing your last game before the conference game too, I think people would just be like, okay, let's in fact punish.
But I mean, honestly, those losses are less embarrassing than Alabama's losses.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, Alabama's losses are Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and whatever the other one was.
But those losses mean more.
They just mean more. I don't know. Like that would be an interesting discussion.
I mean, it would have been fun to beat Bama. It also would have been fun to beat Miami if they could have made it, but apparently not. It's also funny that they don't make it. That's very fun. I saw someone on Twitter say, like, it's going to be fun to see Mario Cristobal and Dan Lanning in the same room for the Heisman ceremony. Like we haven't seen that yet. Number 1 Oregon versus number 3 Penn State. We all know how this went, and the good guys won. The number 1 Oregon Ducks won it all. What a fun game. Congrats, especially Tez Johnson. Holy hell. Now, so let's reveal. I want to say this. I had all 5 picks right, but then I had to change the picks to have any semblance of a chance. Doesn't mean I was any less wrong, but certainly wrong. What it all comes down to
wrong.
Is, once
wrong
again,
is wrong, bro.
Wrong is wrong. I do agree. This is where we were last week. I was 2 points behind Tiff, and the final standings for the 2024 Pick'em Challenge on the Quack 12 podcast goes to Hithliday once again. 123 points for Hithliday, 120 for Adam, 96.5 points for Aaron. Because I duped him with those fun drawings. It's basically what it comes down to there. Congratulations, Hithliday.
Thank you. This is closer than it's closer than I anticipated.
So
I know. I was
there were more upsets this season than usually. That's the thing is with only like 1 or 2 exceptions that I can recall, I basically picked chalk. I basically rolled with Vegas like in virtually every game. I think if I am adding this up correctly, I think there were like 145 available points. And I only got 123, which meant, basically once or twice a week there was an upset in the Big Ten.
It felt like, that's why it's in the Big Ten. I could see that. There was a lot of like middling teams that did a little bit better, or teams that are supposed to be good that did a little bit worse. And just in general, it's been a fun college football season. Like, especially with like with the SEC looking very mid, as the kids say. ACC being very ignorable, and then Big 12, all the usurpers,
the heirs to the Pac-12.
Yeah,
I thought that sort of the theme of the season to me, looking around the conferences was, the Pac-12 obviously a big part of this, but it sort of stretched beyond it, which is like. I definitely noticed this in the Big Ten, but kind of looking around at some other conferences as well. That like there's a lot of conferences are sort of calcified with their sort of relationships with each other. It's sort of like, well, this was our game plan for how we played this team last year and the year before and the year before. Didn't we lose all 8 times, when we did that strategy? Oh yeah, but I feel like if we just tweak it a little bit,
the James Franklin approach.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and I'm sure lots of people can relate to this, where it's maybe playing a video game or in love or in lots of different things where it's just like. Can you realize that this is this strategy that I'm sure you think would work? Like you're just like, man, this should work. I just got to try it again, and like, oh man, it just didn't work again, and then the newcomer shows up and is like, I'm going to do something different. And like, that's been the story of the season is the newcomers show up, do something different, and kind of smash these calcified structures.
We were pretty damn close to getting like Texas, SMU, ASU, Oregon as the conference champions of these places.
Right?
Like, pretty amazing.
I really feel like a lot of these conferences that were just like real convinced of their superiority, and really their superiority was just built on familiarity, and the unfamiliar. I was just like,
or for example, SEC. It's like, well, if you have Bama every year and Georgia being what it was these last 4 years, then you can just be like, yep, we're the best. We'll always be the best. But if you want to treat, go check my Twitter timeline. It was only a couple of days ago. I retweeted from college CFB rep college football report. It was back in February, where
Dan Lanning had made some comments to the local media that the local Sports Illustrated guy, posted. That was, the question was, what about the travel changes? Won't Oregon be at a disadvantage going to the Big Ten? Dan Lanning was like, no, we travel all the time. Oregon's not going to have to adjust. Big Ten teams are going to have to adjust to Oregon. I think at the end of the day, the Big Ten is going to have to prepare for us and what we do different for that league, which is the quote of the season. I'll repeat it. I think at the end of the day, the Big Ten's going to have to prepare for us and what we do different for that league, which 100% accurate. And describes the season, not just for Oregon in the Big Ten, but for SMU in the ACC, for Arizona State in the Big 12, for Texas in the SEC, and for, a lot of the teams, changing conferences. Like disruption and upheaval was the name of the game. Now, if you really want to treat, you can go back in my timeline and check that one out. I haven't posted that much. You don't have to go back too far to go find it, and go read the responses to that tweet in February. Go read there's been 125 responses. They are Big Ten fans pissing down.
You're not ready to play big boy football. You need to be ready.
Now I'm not calling for brigading. You should not, go make fun of those people. Like just read them in classy, silent dignity.
Humiliate
at
them.
How foolish, how absolute fools these people with, no one ever makes a greater fool of themselves than when they assert with absolute confidence the thing that they have believed for a long time must be true with no evidence. And believing something must be true with no evidence is exactly what got smashed to bits.
There you go. From Hythloday himself, there is no God. Addicted to Quack. Get yourself over there. Hythloday, what do you got planned for all this time between
he's gonna be watching
next
tape.
game? Yeah, watching
watching tape. This week, there's Tristan took a day for personal reasons. So his film review article on the Penn State game is going up on Wednesday morning, the 11th. It's going to be chock full of stuff. On the same day, I'm going to, that article that I teased in the afternoon, I'm going to put up with my preliminary statistical analysis of Oregon's half of the bracket, the 1-4 half of the bracket. And then I'll take a week. I probably won't publish anything. The week after, I'll just spend that time watching. I've already got the Ohio State tape watched, so I'll watch Tennessee tape just in case. But and then I'll just be watching some tape on ASU, Clemson, Texas. We'll just see how it goes. I'm probably going to need to be doing like a rota. It'd be pointless to watch like Indiana Notre Dame tape because like they got 3 games to get through in order to see Oregon. But like, I want to sort of be up on some stuff so that I don't have to cram like an entire season into 10 games into 10 days. So like, I'll figure it out. But I'm probably going to be on a light schedule. I do have like, I don't know, relatives to see.
Nah, not worth
Christmas time.
Yeah. Aaron, to close out what has been, we're 13-0 right now. We just won the Big Ten championship. Couldn't be more decisive of a victory over these schlubs. Aaron, I want you to give us a little pep talk for this team. To tell this team, they've gone through so much. They got like practically a month until they play again. What do you have to say?
Wait, we have a month before we play again?
January 1st. We're not playing until January 1st.
The Rose Bowl, baby.
Rose Bowl.
Here's the motivation.
Granddaddy of them all.
Relax. Burn one down.
No.
Be mellow for a week.
Aaron.
Then wash it all out with plenty of water. But like get those muscles as relaxed as they can get so that
we've literally lost a national championship because we had some people smoking weed. All right. We can't have it.
Hey, brother. Legal's legal. All right.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
There's nothing I can say that Dan Lanning can't say 20 billion times better. No I'm just gonna say, stay fucking frosty and stay mellow. Don't do anything. Don't party. Do not party. Just stay mellow. Unless playing Fortnite and burning one down is partying, then do that. But otherwise, don't do it.
So many contradicting statements. She said, stay mellow, stay frosty, smoke some weed, don't do anything, don't do any drugs, or whatever.
I didn't say smoke weed. I said burn one down.
Burn one down.
We don't know what that means.
That could be a threat. Well, we'll see y'all at the Rose Bowl. Holy hell. We still got some stuff coming up. We got to pick some bowl games. We got some best stubs coming out. Wow. It's been quite the season. We'll see y'all next week. Quack, quack.
Quack, quack.